I'm sure we're all very aware of the advantages that cycling can have for our physical and our mental health, but what are some of the disadvantages? Well, I suppose top of the charts has to be the risk of accidents, and I completely get it. Riding on a busy road with cars whizzing past you, feeling very vulnerable, can be incredibly intimidating. And all I'll say here is that I think the drivers of those cars are really trying to be mindful and courteous of us cyclists. It's not always the case, granted, but I think generally speaking, most of the people driving those cars really don't want to injure us cyclists. But that said, that doesn't take the responsibility away from us as cyclists to ride responsibly and defensively, and that means obeying the rules of the road, things like not jumping red lights, not riding the wrong way down one-way systems and things like that, being courteous to other road users as well, but also wearing things like crash helmets and just taking our time and just trying not to feel like we've got to compete with the traffic on the road. Now, according to some studies, the risk of getting some kind of heart problem or respiratory problem rises about 70 times if you don't do any exercise at all. So the benefits of cycling definitely outweigh the risks. And I know, statistically speaking, that you are more likely to have an accident while you're driving than while you're cycling. But yeah, if you're in a car, you are somewhat protected. Basically, you're sitting in a metal box, whereas when you're on the road, you are very vulnerable, and being hit by something, the consequences are pretty high. But all you can do is just ride defensively and just be very, very careful. Alternatively, if you don't want to ride on those busy roads, you can ride on quieter roads, or better still, you can ride off-road where there are no cars at all, and the risk of having an accident like that are completely taken away. The other type of injury that you might get are things like strains and sprains, and they come from either riding a bike that doesn't fit you properly or just trying to push yourself that little bit too hard. And again, this can all be mitigated doing things like having a proper bike fit and not pushing yourself too hard. Another disadvantage of cycling is basically the fact that you're outside and you are exposed to the weather. Normally, cycling on a nice sunny day is absolutely fantastic. It's great fun and a real pleasure. But when the weather's not so great, when it's wet, it's windy, cold and icy, those weather conditions can be a problem within themselves, particularly if it's icy. The last thing you want is to slip on the ice, injure yourself, and then you're off the bike for weeks, if not months. So again, it's a question of just being a little bit mindful of the weather conditions. If you think the weather is going to be a little bit too dangerous to ride in, then just don't ride in it. One of the big fears about cycling is that it's going to be an expensive hobby. And I won't pull any punches here. Yes, cycling can be a little bit expensive, especially when you have to buy the bike and you have to buy things like the clothes, the helmet, the cycling computer, the shoes, etc., etc. It's a significant financial investment. Now, cycling, while it does cost to do it, it doesn't have to be anywhere near as expensive as you maybe first think. Some of us may even have the most expensive piece of equipment, the bike itself, already in the shed or the garage. You just need to kind of get it out, give it a quick once over, maybe even take it down to your local bike shop for a quick service or something, and then you can ride that actually out on the road. Failing that, you can probably get one second hand, or if you want to go down the route of buying a brand new bike, then you could get an entry-level bike reasonably priced these days. As for the equipment and the clothing, well, I would strongly recommend getting a good quality crash helmet. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy around that, and many people will disagree with me, and I'm not here to debate that. I personally would never ride without a crash helmet, and I wouldn't recommend that anyone else do so. So yes, get yourself a good quality crash helmet, kids. The next thing is all of the cycling gear, the lycra, the shorts, the shoes and everything. And you know, that's all technical kit, and yes, that does cost a little bit, but it really is the best thing to wear when you're out on the bike. It doesn't restrict your movements, and it does wick sweat away so that you don't end up feeling all cold and clammy, particularly when it's a little bit on the cool side outside. Now, having said that, you don't have to wear that cycling kit. Maybe you don't want to buy it, maybe you don't like the look, and who would blame you? It's not the most flattering of looks. Plus, you may not think that it's that necessary, or you just don't want to look that particular way. And again, you don't have to do anything like that. You can start off wearing just normal sports gear, pair of shorts, t-shirt, pair of trainers, that kind of thing, and just, you know, get on the bike and get yourself some exercise. Having invested in all of that kit, the next disadvantage might be you go out and it all gets stolen. And again, I completely understand that. Now, of course, this can be mitigated when you take the bike out somewhere. If you're riding it yourself and not stopping, then you know the danger of it getting stolen is pretty minimal. But if you're leaving it somewhere, then obviously that risk increases. And what you should do there is invest in a good quality lock, park it somewhere secure. You can take out things like bike specific insurance, and you can even get things like trackers these days that will find or at least locate your bike in the event that it is stolen, and you stand a slightly greater chance of getting your bike back. Now, when you're at home, security is equally as important. You should always park it somewhere secure, particularly if you're leaving it overnight, and preferably you should lock it and maybe even have something like a ground anchor that's actually bolted to the floor or the concrete of your shed or your garage, and then you lock your bike to that as well. And it makes taking the bike away or getting it stolen a little bit more difficult. Now, while cycling is a fantastic form of transport, the range is somewhat limited. So for me personally, I have this rule that if I need to go somewhere that's less than 10 kilometers or 6 miles, I will always try and ride the bike rather than drive the car. And that's for environmental reasons, it's for health reasons, and it's also because I'm a tight-fisted devil and I just don't want to pay the parking fees when I get there. Now, that sometimes isn't all of that practical. Obviously, the weather might not be great, in which case I'll need to take the car, or sometimes I might have to take things with me, like, you know, books or documents or a laptop or something like that, and then carrying it on the bike is not that practical. Yes, of course, I could put it in a backpack and carry it like that, but if it's something bigger, then yeah, it may have to go in the car. Unfortunately, if you do want to get the most out of cycling, it can be a little bit time consuming, and that's not only to actually do the ride itself, but it also takes a little bit of time to get ready, get back, have a shower if that's the thing that you're going to do, get changed into your normal clothes again. That part of the ride can take anything up to about between half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, and then the ride itself might be half an hour, couple of hours or so. And again, this might not be ideal, particularly if you have a family or you have work commitments and things like that. And the only thing that I can say to that is if you can kind of plan your time a little bit better, then finding the time to go out and ride does become a little bit easier. Yes, okay, I'll admit that there are disadvantages to cycling, but then equally there are disadvantages to practically everything in life as well. The flip side is, though, that those disadvantages can be mitigated somewhat, and I'll definitely say that the advantages of actually getting out and riding a bike far outweigh those disadvantages. If nothing else, just getting out, having a ride improving your physical and your mental health count for a lot.